Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dog Classroom Podcast. I'm Anne-Marie.
And I'm Amelia.
And we are going to revisit the topic of barking.
Right. So we do have a past episode where we had examples of barking. And I think it would be good as a refresher, if you haven't seen that one yet, to go and watch that one.
Okay.
So that you're aware of what we're going to be talking about, the types of barking and all that sort of stuff.
Because we're sort of, I'm not going to say we're going to rush through it a little bit, because I think we want to talk about more circumstantial stuff today. So we're going to talk about types of barking. So main types of barking.
Alarm.
Okay. Yeah. And that's actually the one we're going to deal with today. But there is a mixture of fear, aggression, and then good old obnoxious, which I find entertaining, because to me, everybody's like, how do I know it's obnoxious barking? And it's like your dog being goofy, yipping, and I can just picture the golden retriever. I took this video like 15 years ago, and literally she was doing a leave it, and he wanted that treat so bad, and he was just barking, and he was being goofy, and he's throwing his head, and his feet were coming up, and I'm like, that's obnoxious barking.
Well, and it's just maybe a little bit of frustration too.
Yeah.
Like they're just, I can't get to the thing that I want to get to.
I can't get to the thing I want to get to.
So there's lots of different types of barking. And then when people say to us, like, how do I stop my dog barking? And I'm like, okay, step one, identify what are we dealing with.
There you go. Identify the reason or the trigger.
And there could be more than one.
Yes.
So if someone says, I need to stop my dog from barking, they're barking at people out on walks, and they're barking every time my neighbor closes their car door. Okay. Those are kind of two different things, or they could be.
Right.
So we want to talk about situation specific.
We do.
Because it's not going to be like this one size fits all, here's how you stop barking.
Correct. So where are we going to start, inside or outside?
I think the most common one, maybe more with small dogs, but also some big dogs, is barking at the window.
Yes.
And so to be more specific, inside the house, barking at the window when
front bay window.
Yeah, always a front bay window. When somebody is home. Let's talk about when they're home.
Okay, when they're home. Okay.
Okay, so there's a human that is home with the dog. The dog is at the front window barking. That person calls you and says, how do I stop this? What are we going to do?
Okay, so first of all, in explaining to people, which they sometimes don't quite understand the protective or the guarding of the household.
So we're identifying the type of barking.
There we go. The dog is constantly reinforced for sitting in the window. Person approaches, dog barks, person leaves. One for your dog. And they get extremely good at what they do all day. And the thing is, if you're not redirecting it and you're letting this constantly happening, you can imagine how successful your dog is every day about scaring away people. But this also will eventually transfer to outside.
Right.
Okay. So let's first of all talk about why they're sitting in the window. Yes, they like to watch their neighborhood go on. But can there be other things that they're doing in the house? You know, like Z right now is chewing a Himalayan chew, right? I just talked about a toppler. That's Kelsey's thing. You fill it with food. Like, oh, she's going to roll over. Yeah, but if they're busy doing things, they're not sitting at the window.
Right. Okay. And also, when we're talking about like doing other things, one thing that I used to do when I had the 3 dogs in the one living room is open the window, like, so you'd open it so they could smell smells, and they could hear things, but they weren't necessarily like staring at them. Okay. So it's still like a little bit of enrichment. I'll still do it now, like just
you have that corner window.
You want to smell the outside a little bit, like it's still letting them, experience things, but without that, like, I'm going to stare at it and I'm going to guard every leaf that blows by.
Right. But I guess my frustration is, and the reason why I wanted to go back to this topic, because people's first instinct is we reach for the collar.
I think the first instinct is we yell.
Okay. Possibly, yes. We yell at the dog to stop barking at the window. So now the dog thinks that we are now joining in and getting as emotional as they are. So we're like this.
Right.
So dog yelling, human yelling, dog yelling, human yelling, everything gets exaggerated. Or whenever this is happening, the owner gets extremely upset or frustrated with the dog, and then the dog associates the person walking by with the owner being frustrated. So it's sort of a round circle. But the tricky thing is again, understanding it. So we're talking about that the owner's home. So there's still things we can do, and I'm going to bring them up again. We can put window decals
Yeah, like the little
that can frost,
fuzzy.
so they actually can't see. Yes, they can still hear, but usually you get less of an emotion.
Right, and you get nice sunlight in as opposed
Yeah.
to closing the blinds.
Well,
where-
you can still close the blinds, blocking them out of the living room, period.
Yeah, if you're not actively working on it, they don't need to be.
Right. But, or the other thing, and like I mentioned to you before we started recording, is like 1 out of 10 times the owner will go and try to redirect the dog and then come to us and say it's not working. It has to be every single time that dog needs to be redirected to the window, because it needs more reinforcement for you for not barking than the reinforcement from the person walking by because it scared it away.
And if they've been doing it for 2, 3, 10 years, that's a whole lot of reinforcement for barking and having people go away.
Yeah.
So we can't expect that it's going to take, 3 times of redirecting the dog and then going, why isn't it fixed yet? It's going to take time. It's going to take repetition.
So then let's also talk about those things can also be used for management for when you're not home.
Right. Okay. But I want to stay on home first.
We're staying on home.
We're staying on home because you're saying redirect from the window.
Right.
I don't know what to do. What should I do?
So redirecting from the window is actually, everybody says they try calling the dog. Go get the dog.
Right.
Okay. Then they can't catch the dog.
Yes. You're saying they try to grab the collar.
Right. Because they try to grab the collar and they're upset. And the dog knows they're upset, so they don't want to be caught. So they can be dragged, having a leash dragged. We calmly go get the dog.
Right.
Bring them over. There's a dog mat right here. They can be trained, go to mat. They could be in the kitchen with you practicing go to mat. They can have a Chewy laying in the living room so they're not actually at the window. Redirection can also mean coming away and doing some trick training, hand targets, spins. I find when dogs get into the habit of being redirected, they actually do really well with it.
Yeah, and I think
You just got to be a little bit pushy at the beginning where, they're going to do one sit and run and bark at the window. Be persistent and get like 4 or 5 different sequences of stuff.
Mm-hmm. I think people are also worried with that about like chaining a pattern. So, my dog's going to bark more because I fed them.
Yeah.
But when we're redirecting with a purpose and we're saying, you're going to come over here, hey, let's do 4 or 5 different tricks, we're not considering the barking at this point, right?
Yeah.
There's other things that have happened in between. And this is where having that knowledge about how the learning works and everything is helpful, because we know that they're thinking about 1 to 2 seconds before the reinforcement. They're not thinking about what they were doing 3 minutes ago.
Exactly. Dogs are moment to moment, and I keep saying it's the people that think we're reinforcing the past. Once they left that window and come away and started doing different things, they're not going to they're not really manipulative.
No, they don't have that.
They don't sit there and say, if I bark, I get called away and get treated.
Yeah.
They don't.
If you go up and you try to lure them away and they bark and you put a treat in their face, you're doing that.
Different.
Yeah, 1 second after they were barking, that could cause a problem.
Yeah.
So when we're doing that, we're waiting for, a few moments of quiet before we're giving them a treat, if that's what we're trying to do. Or, like you said, we're just gently moving them and saying, hey, we're going to do this instead.
So that's what I mean by redirecting.
Okay.
And what I like to say to people, and especially in our greeting classes where we do the ready to work protocol, is we just get the dog's focus at the beginning. I get them doing their favorites, because when you tell people to warm up their dog, you notice that they seem to do the same exercises every time. I don't know if you notice that a little bit. I try to get them to throw in 1 or 2 new ones.
Yeah.
So then you're having this nice little sequence of 7, 8, 9, 10 things, and look at you go.
And then their focus, we're talking about, on a walk and greeting and stuff like that. But even in the house, like if you're doing 7, 8, 9 different tricks or
Mental.
whatever, right?
Yep.
It's mental stimulation.
Yep.
And also you're building that reinforcement for working with you as opposed to just running right back to the window after one treat.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, now you can talk about, oh, I stepped on her tail a little bit. You can talk
That's why
about
she's looking
when
at
they're
it.
not home. So
Yeah.
if someone's not home, how
So
can
if
they be
someone's
working
not
on it?
home, first of all, you can't train when they're not home.
Yeah.
Okay. Some people have cameras.
I have a camera.
Yeah, I know. So does Kelsey. And you guys watch the dogs more. Anyway, we're not going to talk about cameras. Okay. But again, window film.
Yeah.
Lock the dog out because they are practicing the behavior when you're not home.
Yeah.
Like there have maybe 8, 10, 12 successful, I scared that person away today. And you come home and they're never relaxed, right? Because they're all worked up. So window film, close the curtains, block them out. Everybody says open concept house. They have
Big
wonderful gates. They bend, move furniture, get creative.
Yeah, I used to just pull an X-pen across the living room. That
Exactly.
was my thing.
Yeah.
And I just kept it folded against the wall.
Yeah.
It wasn't beautiful, but it worked. They make those, like the ones that we have at the training space, like
Yeah.
the big, long baby gates. They have
And
those
like I
now.
said, you can bend them into different shapes. Like we don't really have lots of stuff attached to the wall because we want to move it for different things in different locations. So those are the main goals.
Moving the bench away from the window.
Yes, but a lot of people say, well, they really like the back of the couch. Give them the back of the couch when you're home and you can redirect.
Yeah.
They don't need it for 8 hours to practice the behavior while you're not home. They'll be okay. But again, leaving them with this stuff, put the gate up.
Yeah.
Give them the stuffed Kong. Leave them hide and seek. Give them a snuffle mat, right? And there's stuff like that. If they hear different things, I'm huge for having like classical music, something background-ish going.
Yeah.
Right.
I do that. I put on the radio
Yep.
or whatever when I...
The thing I'm going to ask is not using the collars. I am going to bring up the different style of e-collars.
Well, they have, so there's the ultrasonic ones that we were talking about yesterday.
You're right.
They have the shock ones.
Yeah.
They have ones that spray your dog in the face with citronella.
Yeah.
They have ones that are a puff of air. Like there's so many creative ways to punish a dog rather than coming up with creative ways to reward the dog for not doing that thing.
I just don't understand, but I think maybe it's just our education where the first thing, and from being a parent, the first thing that in order to deal with a situation, we look at something negative or we look at punishing our dog for something instead of actually trying to work through it and come up with a training plan and just like you're saying, identify it. They're alarm barking. Some people like the fact that they bark, right? And that they're in the household and they're not realizing that these things are actually creating more anxiety and stress because your dog doesn't understand the association, or the association is this thing zaps me every time a person shows up. And then they wonder why when people come over, the dog's terrified in the corner.
That's the thing, is the side effects. And because of marketing, they're going, this is friendly, right? Like we were talking about the ultrasonic thing. It's marketed as harmless, no side effects. Like because it's not an electric shock, people think that it's okay and it's not uncomfortable for the dog. Whereas I always like to share my experience when someone in my neighborhood got the outdoor ultrasonic thing for their own dog.
Right, I forgot about that.
Yeah, my dog Holly peed in the basement for a month because she was scared to go outside. Because somebody else's dog was barking and somebody else's dog was being corrected by the ultrasonic thing. That can happen too, right? You have the ultrasonic thing in your house, one dog barks, one dog doesn't.
Yeah, they set it off. Same with the citronella collars. If you have two dogs and the other dog barks, the other dog gets corrected. But you're creating this anxiety and stress, and everybody will say to you, yeah, it's working. The dog's not doing it as much because they're watching them on their camera, but those anxieties and those little tweaks of what they're causing come out long term.
Yeah. And it's long term, right? Because they don't see it immediately. they don't sometimes say, no, that didn't cause it. It did. It just takes time, right?
Yeah.
Not all dogs are going to be sprayed in the face one time and then go, oh, I'll never bark again. It's going to take time. And there are actually, like, there are health concerns with the citronella sprays. I've read some stuff online.
A lot of dogs actually ended up with eye issues because of the smell.
Yeah.
So is strong.
Well, and we use citronella as a repellent for, like, there's dog sprays that are citronellas, like, for off-leash dogs, like, if you're getting rushed or whatever, like, it's not good for their nose, it's not good for their eyes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just because it's not necessarily a shock collar doesn't make it harmless. And I think that's just a lot of marketing and...
Right. But again, just the thing is, and we can have like 3 other podcasts doing this, but I just wanted to bring it. The main part of this barking is the reason I wanted to do this episode is just explain there's alternatives. Don't just reach for the collar. Do something about it, because I don't want to say you're part of the problem, but you're part of the problem.
I mean, I acknowledge that, right? I'm part of the problem in my house, where you said yesterday I would have had a window film up there. And I'm like, but I don't care. I don't care if my dog is sitting there barking. I live in the country. I don't have neighbors. They can't hear it. Like, it's not a problem for me. So that might be different for somebody who's got neighbors and whatever. Like, you can't just have your dog barking all the time. So yes, they might put up a window film. Which also, I think, for a lot of people, it's the type of barking that some bothers them and some doesn't. So we're talking about alarm barking.
Okay.
Fear barking
Yeah.
is another one that happens, like, when people come to the door.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that it is fear barking.
Yeah.
And they're going, oh, the dog just needs to say hi or whatever. We talked about greeting in the previous episode. And somebody, they either, if it's a small dog, hand it to the person, or, they make the dog come up or the person gets to go and touch them, and then they stop barking. But it's fear.
Yeah.
And so
I
that
honestly
bothers
say
people.
the worst situation or place to introduce your dogs is indoors at the front door. Indoors again, because I just bring up doorways and hallways.
Yeah,
right?
anything with, like, a
Because
tighter space.
Yeah, it's that tighter space. And I try to compare it to, if you've ever gone into the bank and you go to open the door and the other person is coming out, and then they back up and you back up and they like awkward.
Yeah.
That's how dogs sometimes feel with other dogs and people about the stress of being that tight in that closed situation. The other thing is, I brought up to a client a few years ago, I don't want to say sort of the fun thing was, but she had this beautiful foyer. And I said, have you ever practiced like sits and downs and spins in the foyer? And she's like, no, why would I? Like, the only time we spend time is when people go in and out at the front door. Do we
it becomes
actually,
a stressful place.
Right. Do we actually like sit there and read a book? Like, we don't, right? Should we actually train our dog? And she did do the work, and then she started training the dog, and that was their training location. So as soon as the doorbell rang, somebody opened it, the dog was like, boom, sits down, spins. You know what I mean? Because we just made it associate with something different. But I think for a lot of dogs that are scared, and again, we're not getting into fear, but that having that such narrow walking into is stressful, especially then if we're getting a territorial component.
Right.
So many people want the dogs to greet them with the door. I think there's way better opportunities to remove the dog or train it.
Yeah, so instead of standing there at the door yelling at the dog, we're all escalating, somebody's coming in, the dog's scared, or the dog's guarding, or the dog's doing something, we can come up with a plan for our own dog and our own household that works for us, that we can then, it's basically redirection or training in that scenario, where we're going, okay, what's going to work for, for me and my dog. So I have the gate at the top of the stairs.
Yeah,
And,
you do.
know, if I don't want to do
because
greeting,
the landing is a bit tight.
the landing is just this small little spot, or I open the gate, I take them outside, and they greet people.
And the other thing is, I don't think people really realize at this time of year, we can do outside. Yes, we can't do it in January, minus 40. You know, everybody's freezing. Yeah, I don't. But the thing is, it's just doing that greeting and not feeling so stuck. And the other little hint I'm going to give everybody is, if you bring your dog outside, and we're not saying, again, if your dog's fearful that there has to be a huge meet and greet or touching or patting or whatever, and you sort of just move and go for a little walk around the block or something without those doorways or hallways. You bring the people in,
Right.
then you bring the dog in.
So the
and
people
then
aren't coming at the dog.
there you go, and you've just avoided that
Yeah.
front door issue.
And so that's one scenario that could work. There are so many of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
What
I
else
think
were we
that's
working
just
on?
important to know. The other thing I think we wanted to touch on was the alarm barking. It sounds, so it's not necessarily something
Yes.
that they see.
Yeah. Yep.
And I hear this a lot from people who live in apartments or condos, or people who have the neighbors close by, and you can hear every time they're talking, every time they're in their backyard, every time they close their door.
Yeah.
And then the dog starts doing a little bit of alarm barking about that.
I think, and it's, you know, even with moving into an apartment, which we've had a few clients do, but you moved from the city to the country.
Right.
And vice versa. Like, you know, when I would be in town visiting you and we hear school buses and city buses, my guys weren't used to that. I don't have those out.
Yeah, it was
My
really
way.
quiet when we first moved.
Yeah,
so they
and
were
it was
barking
almost
at
too
things.
quiet, right?
Yeah.
But then there was different bird sounds. So how are you saying to deal with the house thing?
Well,
apartment thing?
I think it's just like the barking at the window is identifying what it is, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the time we get emails that say my dog has separation anxiety because they're barking, and I don't think that it is
It's noise.
necessarily.
Yeah, it's noise.
I think
Yeah.
it's sounds that are happening,
Yeah.
and it's when the person's not home,
Yeah.
because when they are home,
They're
the sounds-
preoccupied
yeah.
because they have the owner there and they're
The
busy
sounds aren't
doing
the main
things.
thing.
Exactly. Where if they're sitting there by themselves,
Yeah.
worried. So maybe it's about building up to that situation because, you know, I know you had a client contact you and she built up to have the dog stay in this new apartment, which
Right.
she was bang on. I unfortunately had a client who was going to try that, but all of a sudden time got in the way, and now the dog is living in the apartment full time, having major issues because there was no transition.
The transition is handy if you can. Like,
Yeah.
I know for me when I moved, it was the adaptable diffuser going in before the dogs.
So
even
there's
got there.
things. Look at there's things, right?
Yeah, it was the calming care for the dogs that I knew would be stressed about the move. It was, I have my little radios. My dogs are used to like radios talking, like constantly changing sounds. For some
So
dogs,
you already had a routine.
yeah, for
Okay.
some dogs that would be more stressful. They would prefer like the white noise machine or the air purifier going, or
Right,
some
fans.
other, fans, something like that. Whereas for my dogs, I felt like the radio with them hearing different sounds all the time and it changing kept them a little bit from barking.
Yeah, because a lot of times they don't understand where the talking or the noises are coming from, right? And they don't really put two and two together if they're
Yeah, and so
if
now
they're
as part
new.
of my routine is turn on the radio and the dogs then run to the bedroom to go get their Kong because they know what's happening.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so there's different things that you can do when you're not home and they're barking.
Yeah.
I wouldn't immediately assume separation anxiety. I would,
I think there's a lot more. There's separation issues. It's
Yeah.
not actually separation
there's
anxiety.
isolation distress. There's
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
episode. Yeah, but my thought was just because we do get that question a lot is my dog is barking,
Yeah.
you know, not even at the window. They're not at the window. They're just sitting there barking. And I'm
Yeah.
like, but it's something.
It's something.
Right?
Yeah.
And Nuggie does that too. She won't
Yeah.
even be looking out the window. She'll be
Yeah.
sleeping on the couch. And then all of a sudden she starts barking. She
Yeah.
heard something.
Yeah. Because a lot of times the people say, I didn't hear anything. Well, the dog heard the door 3 doors down. Like
Yeah.
the dog did hear it. But again, it's taking a calm approach. It's redirecting when you're home. It's taking the steps when you're not home. It's doing the transition. So there's things you can do to help it. But you know, for anything, there can't always just be that quick fix and you fix things in an hour or 2 days. Like people have issues and, you know, we're not going to go there and get this quick fix within
No,
2
and I
days.
think if people start to understand a little bit more that there are different reasons for barking, there are different types of barking, there's so many different situations, then
Right.
maybe they won't say, okay, the fix for barking is here's this collar.
Right.
It will be the fix for barking is figure out what it is, figure out how you want to address it, how it's going to work for
Right.
you. and your dog. Figure out, what your dog finds rewarding, and figure out the management piece, because management, which is...
I'm laughing at Z because now she's going to be up. She just absolutely loves this carpet.
She's rolling in the carpet. But the management piece, because when we talk about management, people think that it's forever. Like they think the window film has to be up forever.
Yep, that's true.
You have to commit to it. You have to commit until, we see some improvements, but that's part of it. And so people go, I don't want a gate, I don't want film. Well, you got to do something, right?
Yeah.
You can't just let the dog continue the behavior and expect that it's going to get better. Yeah. So managing human expectations, figuring out the plan that's going to work for everybody, figuring out the type of barking, all of these things go into, how do I stop my dog from barking?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Again, just trying to say, there's more to it. Barking is a tricky thing, and it's an innate behavior. You don't train out barking.
Right.
They naturally do it. Some dogs do it more than others, but there are things that we teach them to do instead of.
Right.
So we're asking you to be creative, put the time and energy into it, because overall the dog will be less anxious and stressed.
Perfect.
Okay. That's good.
Thanks for tuning in. You can find us on our website at thedogclassroom.com or social media at The Dog Classroom, and we'll see everybody next time.
Take care.